Targeted. When I need news, I pass the rest and tune to the source. WOCA.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 25 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. I was really touched recently. My nephew's daughter, that would be my great niece, right?
Yeah.
She asked me if I would teach her how to play guitar. So this past Saturday was her first lesson.
Yep.
And so I said to her, well, tell me a song you would like to learn, because it's more fun to learn songs than to learn, all this musical music theory and et cetera, So she says, I don't want to learn songs. I want to write songs.
Yeah, that was so cool.
And I thought, well, isn't that great? And she's going to be writing. I have quite a few actual writer friends, and some of them are songwriters, and some of them are poets. And don't ask me to tell you the difference between a great lyricist and a great poet. I don't know the difference. Mm-hmm. I have a friend out in California who, in San Francisco, who I guess his actual career was attorney, but he is definitely more of a poet than he is an attorney. He's always he's published, I think, a book or two. I don't know how many he's done, but we have another poet on the phone. Erica Loberg is a poet, and she lives with bipolar 2 disorder, it says here, and she's got a book called Screaming at the Void. This is like reading music. The book is described as an expedition into the heart of a contemporary poet. And it's a memoir, and there's even a picture of her in a mugshot in there. And she looks pretty good in the mugshot picture. Erica, I know you were expecting another caller to come in, but we haven't had that second call yet. So, good morning, Erica. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. Where are you calling from?
I am down in downtown Los Angeles.
Downtown L.A. Are you getting rain right now?
I wish. No, it's muggy.
Okay.
So that probably, but.
That storm we heard about in Tucson isn't as far west as you are then, huh?
They talk about El Nino, they talk about storms. We don't get anything. It's a desert out here. I don't even know why we get even coverage in the time.
Yeah.
I'm in downtown. I'm pretty much really near off of Skid Row, right near Chinatown, near there.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for being on the air with us today. John Brusseau was supposed to be calling in as well. He's your publisher, I understand?
Yes, he also co-wrote the book with me.
Okay. So how do you define poetry? What is a poem?
For me, I can write a prose, because I have other books I've written that are prose, and the way I think is very poetic in terms of, like, if I take a paragraph and I cut it up, like take like a sentence and space the next sentence, it somehow reads like, my writing reads like a poem.
Uh-huh.
So I think it's kind of, it sounds cheesy, but the way my brain takes in information and the beats in my brain is very, it comes out as a poetic form.
Oh, okay.
It's not like, a bland sentence. It's like, part of me being bipolar is I have a hypomanic mind. So I'm constantly thinking really fast and taking information really fast and then regurgitating to bring it out really fast. And so it has a rhythm to it, I guess.
I think it's, if I was going to define it, I would think the poetry is very visual in many cases, like direct, like quick, like a few words make an impact, whether it's visual or emotional. Mm-hmm. And to be able to do that is a real gift. So have you been able to do this all your life?
I started writing when my poetry in my early 20s. When I graduated college, I was living in New York and kind of lost. So I kind of turned to writing to handle the isolation I kind of felt when I was in New York. And then when I was 28 and I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, I remember I sat down and I was like, okay, I'm not going to be one of those writers that says that if I take medication I can't, be an artist or songwriter or, painter. So that's when I really started writing a lot of poetry, and since then that's been like over 1,000. So.
Is that right? It's one of the it's one of the lesser celebrated art forms, I think, is poetry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think it has a bad reputation in terms of, if someone hears poetry, they think it's laborious or Milton's Paradise Lost, or it just sounds like academic and not exciting. And I find my poetry personally is it's considered provocative and edgy, but it's more just really honest. And I don't actually read Canterbury Tales or Shakespeare. I mean, I have, and I studied it in college, but I don't. I think that's a kind of a different, antiquated form. I like to think my stuff is more just new and rich in its texture, and I don't know. It's I don't. Go ahead.
What I like about the book again is titled "Screaming at the Void." What I like about "Screaming at the Void" is the fact that you and is it John? Or is he the one?
Yeah.
He's offering, okay. Are offering analysis on the opposite page, and talking, and in other words, helping us understand what we just read.
Yes, I when I read his analysis, it was initially really difficult for me because a lot of stuff in there I didn't know about myself. I didn't want to face about myself. It really goes deep into my. It's amazing how it brings like the subconscious mind. Somehow, like conscious writing he's bringing some conscious ideas out of it, which I've never even heard of before. So I was bringing things about myself that sometimes were uncomfortable. So halfway through it, I almost gave up. I was like, I can't handle this. I don't want to put this out there. I don't want people to know this about me. I don't want to know this stuff about me. So I almost quit. And he was like, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this 100%, and no holds barred. So I just kind of put blind faith in the project because as much as it was hard to read some of the stuff that he gleaned from my childhood, which we barely even knew each other. We've never even met. So.
But isn't that a good sign of somebody who is successful in her poetry? Is the fact that the reader sees the person, the reader gets to know the person who wrote the poem. I don't know. To me, that's whether it's a poem or a poem set to music, which is a lyric. Although I'm sure there's some probably definition that differs from that. But the idea, like when you know a great song and then you finally pay attention to the words, you either go, "Oh my gosh, those words are so crappy," or "Gosh, those words are better than I realized." Yeah, in songs, it can sometimes a poor lyric can sometimes become a bestseller, and then that lyricist thinks, "Oh, I must be pretty good."
Yeah. I don't have anything I feel like commercial, which is kind of frustrating because I'm not I'm not commercially successful. But you're right. My stuff is very naked. Like when you read it, you're really reading into my soul, and I never hold back my writing or what I feel, and I think that probably was made my writing accessible for him and easier for him to analyze.
And sometimes, pardon, go ahead.
No, I was going to say my commentary I kind of think is, to me it's funny. People like it. I just think it's funny that, because I've tried to place people in what I wrote at the time. Because sometimes it's like, where does she write this? And I think my commentary is funny, but that's just my opinion.
But you have a wonderful variety of moods and insights in your book, because sometimes a writer will just take one angle and they'll write things that want to make the reader feel sorry for me. I've had this horrendous life and I can't fix it, but feel sorry for me. But you don't do that. You run the gamut.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I've never made anything up. I really respect writers that can do that. Everything I write about is actually from 100% my real life experience. So I think that's probably why it's the humanity that comes through. And sometimes I do feel like, oh, what was me? I just got my heart broken. But it's not really like that. It's kind of like, it's just what happened and this is the way it feels. And I'm just going to express that, and it is what it is.
Yeah, and you don't dwell on it, and you make sure that the reader knows at the end of the piece, and that's marvelous.
Thank you. I do think some of my stuff can be dark, but at the end of the day, it's real, and I definitely always pick myself up, and I'm a very positive person.
I think a woman who reads your poetry, in some of the poems will make her realize that she's not alone in the things that she's going through, and sometimes that's a good thing. And I think the men who read your poetry will better understand what goes on inside of a woman's mind, and how our social, how society has made us feel that the two sexes are one way when the truth is we're not that different. and you, I mean, you come right out and you basically say it in some of the poetry.
Yeah, actually I'm working on a book called Women Should Know About Men, and it's a sequel to What Men Should Know About Women, and I'm writing from a male's perspective, book of poems, and I kind of approach my work as a person. I don't like to be considered like, oh, she's a feminist or a female poet, or she's a masculine poem, because they talk about my masculinity in the poetry and my femininity, and I just I do think you're right. There's a bridge of gender there, and I just think for me, it's like I have parts of me that are masculine in my soul, and then there are parts of me that are feminine, and even though I'm a woman, but I really approach myself as a person and not really say this is one gender of a poem or this is another. So
yeah,
that makes any sense.
And I hope you didn't think that that's what I meant. I was specifically referring to some of the poems that refer to like fat and that kind of thing. I mean, we put so much emphasis on that, and I think you ladies really. I mean, some guys are really that superficial, but do you know we had before you? I want to tell you this.
I'm very superficial.
No, Erica. Before you, we had a lady on, and she wrote a book. She's a porn actress.
Yep.
And I thought to myself that actually you are more exposed than she is because you're so blatantly honest in this, and what she does for a job is like totally different, obviously. But the average person wouldn't think that a poet is more exposed than an adult film star. But we do have a phone call coming in. I don't know if this is your co-author or not. Let me push the button up and say good morning. You're on the air.
This is John.
Hey, John. We were waiting for your call. We're speaking to Erica, and we're talking about the book that you wrote with Erica.
Excellent.
So from a man's point of view, how did you discover Erica's writing, and how did it affect you to the point where you thought you wanted to publish this?
I heard your last comment about how exposed Erica is, and there's a quality in the way that she exposes herself. It makes herself transparent that I really liked. It's not done for effect. It's something she has to do. It's something that she doesn't think about. I view it probably a little differently than she does. I view it as a need in her or a calling in her to expose the human condition. I think all artists kind of have somewhat of that calling. You're not conscious of it, but it's there. You have to be transparent, not just for your own insight, but everybody else's. And I really like that about her. She's not she's not exploiting anybody.
Yeah.
She's just being herself.
Right.
And is that good for everybody to do that? Because sometimes you don't want to be transparent to others, but you have to be transparent to yourself, but sometimes you lie to yourself and say you're not really like that.
Yes, and I think each of us have areas of our soul that we're more comfortable being transparent with. Erica voices it very beautifully in her poetry, and it invites us to see ourselves. And that's a beautiful quality to have in your poetry.
Yeah. The title is awesome, Screaming at the Void. I mean, how many of us have had points in our lives where there was just this big emptiness and all we wanted to do was just scream at it and somehow fill it with something? Mm-hmm. And I just love the title. That is just an outstanding title. Was that an easy choice to make, to choose to give the book that title?
Yeah, for me it was. Because I see that's another thing about Erica that I love. She's not cynical. She's still hoping for fulfillment and joy, and she may have serious doubts about getting it, like the rest of us do, and she's transparent about that. But she's still hoping for it.
I wonder about the like when you hear that there's a poet, what do we call that? Like there's actual poets that, oh gosh, what's the title again? Poet laureate. When you hear about poet laureates and you hear about the general public celebrating poets, and you realize that, gosh, the general public doesn't know many poets. We name Robert Frost, or we name a few, but we really don't delve into it a whole lot. We think we know poets, but we really, I mean, you learned a few in school, and those are the ones you always name.
Yeah, absolutely. That's because poetry in the publishing world has almost died out. We haven't learned how to market poetry. And the simple problem was we didn't market the person. We just marketed the poetry, and art is an expression of a person. If we can't connect it to a human being in our own human condition, it has no relevance to us.
Isn't that wonderful? That's a wonderful thing you just said. Mm-hmm. I mean, we saw this. We went to the local art museum, and it was a lot of walking. So we took a break and we sat in the theater, and they were showing these little cartoons so that children could learn about the artists. And the two that we sat through were Andy Warhol and Vincent van Gogh. Two totally different personalities, two totally different art styles, and you really got the connection between the art and the artist by watching this. And I think what you just said is absolutely true, that the poet and the poem, I'm sorry, is inseparable.
Yeah, and it needs to be highlighted to market it. And we just slapped a bunch of the poet's work on a page, and that's good enough for people who absolutely love poetry. I don't need any backstory. I don't need any analysis to thoroughly enjoy, because I bring that to it myself. But the vast majority of people don't, and they're intimidated by poetry because they're afraid they're not going to be able to relate to it.
Is that why the analysis is in here?
That's why that's in there, and that's why Erica's backstory commentaries are in there.
Mm-hmm. And Erica, are there a few of these poems that you had written very, very early in your lifetime?
Yeah. Go ahead, sorry.
But that was you. I think you heard your own voice.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, you were talking about the title. The Void was a poem that I wrote. It was one of my first poems. I was living in New York. I said earlier, I graduated from college and I was on my own, and I was lost. I was really lonely, and I remember sitting in my little studio on the floor and then just writing this poem, it's The Void, because I felt this loneliness inside, and how I would feel it at the time, whether it would be frozen yogurt or whatever it is. And that's that kind of, what to me, that's how we actually got the title. John came up with the title, but it comes from that poem. So early on, I was writing pretty intense stuff that I was going through. So that's in that journey.
Good luck with the book. Do you think commercial success would change the poetry?
Geez. I hope not.
Yeah, really.
It'd be nice to make, quote unquote, a living and be known as a poet, because I think my stuff is important. I think it's important and it should be out there. And I don't think I can change who I am. I don't think I can change the way my mind works. So I would not think that it would. Everything, if I'm writing from my life experience, obviously it's going to be reflected in my work, but it's not going to change the way I put words together.
John,
how information.
John, are you in LA too?
No, I'm in Nashville.
In Nashville? Oh my goodness. Do any of these translate to lyrics?
Any of these poems?
Yeah.
I haven't thought of them in those.
John, did you do any self-analysis with you after you and Erica got together and there was something that you improved about your lifestyle, and did you write about it?
Do I analyze my own work?
Yes.
Yes, I do. I've been doing this as a counselor for decades. So it was, and I've done it for myself. I've done it with other writers, other artists, and it's a big part of my life.
I think the one thing about poetry is that it has to be reread. If you can read a poem and get it the first time, I think reading, especially in this case, because you have the analysis, so you read the poem, and then you read the analysis, and then you read the poem again. I think you have a different appreciation of what is being said.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. It makes me happy to hear that people do want to reread a poem. It's a necessity to me because there's so much in those lines, and you won't get them all. You won't get it all in the first reading. You just can't. And you should be passionate enough about this person that you want to know more about them, know more what they're saying.
And when people collaborate, you have to have the trust of each other. How did you both manage to gain each other's trust in this kind of a project?
Go ahead.
Like I said earlier, halfway through I was going to give up. I was like, this is too much. I don't know what, like, this is really expository, and I don't want to know this stuff about myself, let alone the world. And I remember John was very adamant. He's like, either we're going to do this full blown or we're not. And I literally had to just have blind trust and be like, okay, I'm just going to put it out there and we'll see what happens. And it was a big decision actually at the time, but I'm glad obviously I did it. But it was hard. It was really hard to read some stuff he was writing about.
The artwork you chose for the cover really reflects what the book feels like, and thank you for being on the air with us. I have a copy of Screaming at the Void that I would like to give away. If you would call me, I'll put your name on it. It'll be waiting for you at the station. Do you guys have how do we get the book, and do you have a website?
Yes, it's DovPub, DOVPUB.com. Okay,
DOVPUB.com, and if you go there, you'll see right away Screaming at the Void. I just went to the website, an expedition into the heart of a contemporary poet. So, John, one quick question for you. It says in your bio that you are a publisher and an expedition leader. What does that mean, expedition leader?
I didn't want to have a canned title. I just wanted to be able to explain what I was doing.
Okay.
And that's what I was doing. It is an expedition into the unconscious of a writer.
How do we make poetry public? Do we read it out loud in coffee houses? How do we do that?
That's one way. If you buy the book and it impacts you deeply, you'll probably read it out loud to someone that you love. I've seen a number of people do that already, and some of them are weeping when they're reading her poetry. It touches them.
Yes, I'm sure. Erica, you have shared something with us that is really personal, really intimate, and that is not easy to do, especially coming on the radio show and talking with radio geeks like us to help us understand it better. Thank you for doing what you do, and good luck with everything, both you and John. And thank you for coming on the air. For the listeners, again, the website for the book is dovpub.com, D-O-V without the E, P-U-B, dovpub.com. And you guys are welcome back anytime. Thank you for being on the air with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll be right back.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. On this Wednesday, variable cloudiness with a couple of showers and a thunderstorm around in the afternoon, the high 88 to 92. There can be a shower with thunderstorm in spots late tonight near the coast, otherwise partly cloudy winds tonight with a low of 72 to 76. For Thursday, times of clouds and sun with a thunderstorm around, the high 89 to 93. Friday, times of sun and clouds with an afternoon thunderstorm, high 88 to 92. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.